details surrounding Victoria's controversial Belt and Road deal with the Chinese government have come to light. Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell has revealed emails from 2018 between officials within the Premier's Department and Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. The emails show the Victorian government pushing DFAT for a very speedy response to their feedback on the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding. Premier Daniel Andrews, well, he was asked about this deal yesterday.
Was it you that was trying to push the deal through as quickly as possible?
Well, this is really interesting, isn't it? Because for the longest of times I was accused of not having consulted DFAT. The very email that you're quoting from would put the lie to that. I'm not aware of that email, and we do things appropriately, all things at all times.
Will the federal government this week is going to try and pass a bill that would put the deal at risk of being torn up? Is that a concern to you?
Well, apparently there's no more important matter in the federal parliament than to be dealing, and on the agenda of the federal government, than to be dealing with sister city arrangements, sister state arrangements, MOUs and partnerships across the board. I don't know that that's necessarily the biggest priority for our nation, but that's a matter for the Commonwealth government.
Melbourne City Councillor Nick Rees joins me now, and the Director of Policy at the Institute of Public Affairs, Gideon Rozner, both of the gentlemen from Melbourne. Well, Gideon, it's getting more and more interesting. It was a bit snarky there in that press conference, but of course it's the Constitution, mate, and there's no right for states to sign these sort of international agreements.
Well, more to the point, Peter, I think Chinese influence in Australia is quite a big deal. I think it is right for the Morrison government to be focusing on the potential for debt trap diplomacy that could run the risk of having our strategic assets owned by the Chinese. But look, the bad news is even before Corona, Victoria was in a bad financial shape. Dan Andrews is embarking on a $107 billion infrastructure spend, and he's turning to dubious sources of money to get it. This, to me, is like a modern-day Kimlani loans affair.
Yeah, it is a bit like a Kimlani loans affair, because in the last 2 financial years, Nick Rees, Victoria has doubled its debt. Now, I think this will be a lovely excuse, the envelope of COVID, to sort of spend more money and throw it out the door. He will say it's for infrastructure, and some of that infrastructure spending is worthy. But as we saw from the Grattan Institute today, some of these mega projects have dubious economic value, and it takes many years for there to be any sort of payoff.
Well, yes, and look, you know, Peter, and you do as well, Gideon, that I don't carry a candle for the Chinese Communist Party, but I do advocate for us taking a proportionate response to our dealings with China. And I think some of the political hysteria, and that's what it is, around Victoria's signing of the Belt and Road Initiative just goes too far. I mean, at the end of the day, the Belt and Road Initiative is an MOU around investment and finance opportunities for parties that enter into it. So what does that mean? It means that Victoria is potentially at the front of the queue to get finance from China to fund much needed infrastructure in Victoria and to win export opportunities for our state. And I don't see the problem with that. At the end of the day, you can have a problem with the Chinese Communist Party of China, but Victorian and Australian businesses stand to gain huge amounts. Australian workers stand to gain huge amounts from business dealings between our nations, whether that's lobster farmers, wine growers, mining sector or education. There is a lot to be gained there. And some of the criticisms of the Belt and Road Initiative, frankly, are completely over the top.
I don't know that I agree with you, Nick. I think some of the Uyghur Labor complaints, I think of the hooks that come with this money, it doesn't pass the pub test. I'm sure you had the same security briefings, Nick Rees, as I did working for a Prime Minister, so I'm surprised that you've got the compliant line that you have there tonight. I want to go to the issue of Let Us Speak. These are families of murdered rape victims in Victoria who could soon be forced to obtain a court order in order to speak the very name of the people they love that they have lost. And this week, the bill will be in the upper house in Victoria. If passed, it would make it a crime to name a murdered rape victim. This is pretty tough stuff, isn't it, Gideon? Eurydice Dixon, Aya Masawi, these women that were murdered in Victoria. I don't understand the point of this law.
Well, look, Peter, this is one of the most grotesque incursions into free speech I've ever seen. It's awful to me. Look, the point of it ostensibly is to allow victims to have privacy and to prevent their names from being published. Fair enough. But the way that it's structured, it will require families of victims of sexual violence to apply to the courts to tell their story. That is the wrong direction for us to be heading in. We should not be putting victims through a process like that, and we shouldn't be sweeping sexual violence under the rug. We should be talking about it because only with sunlight as the best disinfectant can we actually get on top of it and do something about it.
Yeah, Nick, just quickly, I think it's pretty tough, isn't it?
Look, I understand the intention of this legislation. I think it's trying to protect people's privacy at one of the most vulnerable moments in their lives when they've lost a family member to a horrific crime. But when you drill down into the detail, it doesn't seem to allow people who want to talk publicly about their family situation to do so, and in fact requires them to go through an expensive legal process to do so. So I think the intention's right. I think the detail and execution needs a bit more work.
Very poorly drafted. I'd start again if they want to go there. And good luck tomorrow, Nick. You're being sworn in as Melbourne's new Deputy Lord Mayor. Well done on your election result.
Thank you very much, Peter. It means a lot to me to get your support and kind wishes. And thank you to Gideon, who said some very kind things about me on social media when the trolls were going after me during the campaign. So thank you to you both.
There you go.
Well,
we might disagree on many things, but people standing up for democracy, I think, is a very good thing, and having a go. If people want to have a go and they get there, well, congratulations, Nick. All right.